Hey guys, so today I want to do another ranking video. I really like to do these ranking kind of videos, I guess, and tell you guys about my opinions about certain topics that I think I'm knowledgeable about. So for this video, I want to talk about my favorite RPGs from every year, from 1990 to 2024 this year. So this is a span of roughly 35 years, so there's going to be 35 games on this list. And yeah, and I played a lot of RPGs, so I thought, maybe do something like this might be fun for both you guys and myself. So there's a couple rules, I guess. I try to keep it to like one game per franchise. That way, kind of make it more diverse and stuff. And I'm going to limit it to only games I played on my channel. And the release year is interesting. So going by the release year, it has to be the release year of the game that I played on my channel. So for example, if something released on PC way later than it did on console, I'm going by the PC release date, if it's the PC version I'm playing on my channel. So I'm just going by whatever year, whatever release date year of the port that I'm playing, or if it's the original one, I'm going by the original one. It's just whatever version I'm playing on my channel, that's the release date year I'm going by, okay? So yeah, that's pretty much the rules here. Western RPGs, JRPGs are both fine. So I'm just gonna pick my favorite RPG of every year from 1990 to 2024. Again, this is kind of my favorite, so it's not really like necessarily the most critically acclaimed or something. It's just my personal opinion. So yeah, and all these RPGs, I've tried to keep it from different franchises. The release year is going to be based on the year that the version I'm playing, basically, on my channel, and it has to be a game I played on my channel. So yeah, that's pretty much the rule so far. So yeah, let's go and begin, and I'm going to tell you guys briefly about each game and why I picked it, why I like it, and yeah, just stay tuned. I'm just going to go over each game here. So another example is JRPGs. A lot of JRPGs, especially the early JRPGs, they got translated into English much later. And in those cases, I'm going by the English release date because that's usually the version I'm playing. So yeah, if I'm playing like a fan translated version, then I'm usually going by the Japanese release date. So yeah, that's basically the rule there. Fan translations are not official. So by those games, I'm just going by Japanese release date. And then English versions, if they're officially translated and localized, I'm going by the official English release date for those. Okay, so for 1990, I'm going with Sword of Vermilion, which was released for Sega Genesis. It's not really like a really well-known title, but I mean, for 1990, I'm just looking at the games I played on my channel in 1990. There's not too many. So yeah, not too much selection here. But Sword of Vermilion is actually a pretty decent game. Yeah, it should be actually more well known. Yeah, it's a very early RPG, or a JRPG actually. Yeah, it's not bad actually. The graphics are okay for 1990 standards. And yes, there is I mean, it's a little rough to go back to, I guess, because it's such an early JRPG. But that's just the thing with a lot of early JRPGs. They can be rough to go back to. But overall, it's not bad. I mean, the graphics are not bad for 1990. And
your father was a good customer.
yeah, definitely. I think the combat was actually pretty interesting in this game.
And for a game from 1990, having this
actually, it has this first-person view. Actually, when you go outside, it's almost like a dungeon crawler, which is really cool. Yeah, and then when you go into combat, I think it's a totally different interface, right? Yeah, so when you go into combat, it's like this interface. So it's actually a really cool game. I like how there's yeah, it's like that free. It's not a turn-based RPG. It's like an action RPG when it goes into combat.
Very early.
And then it has like a dungeon crawler first-person view when you go outside. So yeah, that's actually really cool. So anyway, Sword of Vermilion is going to be my pick for 1990. Really cool game, pretty underrated. I think more people should check them out. It's actually a really cool game for an early RPG like this. I would actually call it one of the top-tier RPGs on the Genesis. And I know Genesis is more known for Shining Force and Phantasy Star, but
specifically,
Sword of Vermilion is actually top-tier RPG for Genesis, I'd say. So for 1991, I'm going to go with Eye of the Beholder 2, Legend of Dark Moon. Again, 1991, I don't have too many choices. I think the only other one I was really considering was Might and Magic 3. But yeah, Might and Magic 3 versus Eye of the Beholder 2 is interesting. I guess, yeah, Eye of the Beholder 2 is what I'm going with. I think this one is just like what I enjoyed playing this one a little bit more because like instead of starting out in a city, you start out I think in a forest. Yeah, I start out in like a forest, and I found like this little creepy like building. I guess it's like a church or cathedral or abbey or something like that.
When did they come back?
Really has some kind of creepy vibes to it. So Eye of the Beholder is part of the Dungeons and Dragons series. And yeah, there's a whole trilogy of them. I think number 3 might be my favorite, but number 2 is actually pretty good too. So yeah, I remember actually kind of enjoying playing number 2. And these kind of RPGs is always kind of interesting to go back to, because it's like very, it's very weird to go back to like an era where when you press up on the up arrow, you don't actually move forward. You have to actually you have to click the up arrow on the interface to move forward. It's like this really old school dungeon crawler games like Dungeon Master like this. But yeah, Eye of the Beholder 2 is actually probably one of the better dungeon crawlers of the era. Let me say that. For 1991, yeah, pretty decent. I actually had a good time playing this. It's pretty cool. The graphics are actually pretty decent for 1991. Actually, like, it's because it's like 2D graphics and everything, it actually ages quite well in my opinion, so there's some charm to it. The only thing is going back to this old school interface where you have to like click around the buttons and stuff to move, but otherwise I think it's a pretty solid Western RPG for the time. So yeah, Eye of the Beholder 2 is my pick for 1991. A pretty solid Dungeons and Dragons RPG for the era, and pretty solid dungeon crawler for the era too. Okay, for 1992, I'm going with Ultima 7: The Black Gate, and it's kind of hard not to because this is such a great game, and Ultima 7 is considered to be one of the greatest Ultima games, if not the greatest. I'd say Ultima 4 and Ultima 7 are probably considered, yeah, to be the best of the series in terms of impact, influence, and everything, and just like what it did to the genre. So Ultima 7 is a pretty influential game, I would say, on the Ultima series. As you guys can see, it has a day-night cycle and everything, and it's a big game. It's actually almost two parts to this game, I believe. The Black Gate, and there's a second part, Ultima 7 too. So yeah, like right now, I think if you play Ultima 7, you'd have to play both parts. You can play both parts together if you get it from the EA Play Store. But yeah, it's a huge game in terms of the choices you can make, characters, the storyline, the environment that you explore.
I just went into a random stranger's house.
What you can do in this game is pretty crazy for 1992 standards. I mean, nowadays, if you look at this game, you're like, oh, what's so great about this game, right? It looks slow and clunky and stuff, but I mean, you have to look from the lens of 1992, okay? From 1992 standards, this was a very ambitious game, and the scope was really huge. And what you can do in this game was like almost unprecedented. So, for 1992 standards, I mean, so yeah, Ultima 7: The Black Gate is my pick for 92. It's often considered to be the greatest Ultima game, and actually the Ultima creator himself, I think, also called this his favorite Ultima game personally as well. So yeah, going with Ultima 7 here. I mean, it's a pretty logical choice, I would say, for 1992. Ultima Underworld is actually the other one I was thinking about, but Underworld is also a very influential game. But yeah, I'm going with the mainline Ultima game here, Ultima 7. Okay, so 1993, I'm going with Dark Sun Shattered Lands, and it's honestly not a surprise for those of you guys who have watched my other ranking videos, because yeah, I really do think that Dark Sun is I have a personal like special place in my heart for it, because it's one of the games I played when I was a kid. I think my dad actually brought back this game from somewhere. I don't know where he got it, but he got a CD from somewhere, and he brought it home, and it was Dark Sun Shattered Lands. It was the full registered version. And had a great time with this game. It's one of my favorite Dungeons & Dragons RPGs. So it's by Strategic Simulations, who made like basically all the early Dungeons & Dragons RPGs back then on PC, or DOS rather. So yeah, this game is your, I would say it's like your typical Western fare, where you choose your character, you create your characters, you roll the dice, you get the Dungeons & Dragons stats and everything. But I really do like the stories in this game, all the side quests. Different variety of monsters, and turn-based combat. You can learn many spells and stuff. Yeah, like all the different side quests. I beat this game, so it's actually, you know, I know all the different side quests and stuff here, but it's actually pretty deep. So you can actually, you know, get a lot of playtime out of this game, because there is a lot to do here. And yeah, overall, I mean, just like a sentimental pick, right? Because this is my list of favorite games. It's not, I'm not saying like this is the greatest game of 1993 or the greatest RPG of 1993, but I'm saying that from a personal standpoint, this is my favorite RPG of 1993. yeah, not necessarily, not saying this is the greatest, but you know, that's what I said about this video. It's not a list of greatest games from each, greatest RPGs from each year. It's my personal pick for each year. So, Dark Sun Shattered Lands is going to be my personal pick as my favorite RPG from 1993. So, if you guys haven't checked it out, go check it out. You can find it on GOG. Actually, it's a great game to play. There's a sequel, Wake of the Ravager, which, in my opinion, isn't quite as good. But yeah, Shadowlands is I think it's one of my favorite Dungeons and Dragons RPGs, especially early ones. The gold box games, I never got into those. This is just ridiculously brutal for me. But this one, yeah, I love it. Okay, so my pick for 1994 is Shining Force 2 for the Sega Genesis. So some of you guys may be wondering, you know, especially those of you guys who are Super Nintendo fans out there, right? Where's Final Fantasy 6? Or Final Fantasy 3 for the US. That came out in 1994. Yeah, I realized that. I didn't actually play the original 1994 version on my channel yet. I played the Pixel Remaster, which is from 2022. So, yeah, I did not play FF6 yet on my channel, not the original one anyways. I played the Pixel Remastered version. So, because of this video requirement that I have to go by videos I played on my channel, so FF6 is not my pick for 1994. So yeah, Shining Force 2 though. It's my favorite Shining Force game, I think. I also like Shining Force CD as well, but Shining Force 2, yeah, I think it's going to be my pick here. I do like Shining Force 2. So it's a tactical RPG, if you guys can't tell from the gameplay. It's pretty much like Fire Emblem, it's you know, get the tactical interface. That's how Shining Force is like. Yeah, it's actually unfortunate that Shining Force didn't really get any more games after number 3. For the Saturn, so yeah, there's no Shining Force 4, you know, there's no really actual sequel after Shining Force 3, which is kind of sad, because the Shining Force games I think do have a following. Yeah, I guess you can say it's kind of similar to Fire Emblem in execution here, but it's one of the early tactical RPGs. But I do like the colorful sprites and the combat. The combat animations are very typical Camelot, so if you guys have played Golden Sun, you'll see that there's some similarities here because it's the same company. But yeah, anyways, I love Shining Force. I love tactical RPGs, and Shining Force being one of the early popular tactical RPGs, along with like Fire Emblem. So yeah, Shining Force 2 is probably my favorite in terms of the overall polishing gameplay, I'd say. So yeah, it's Shining Force CD I think is also good too, but yeah, that one is not quite as well known because it's Sega CD only. But I like this better than Shining Force 1 and 3. So anyways, my pick for 94 is Shining Force 2. Okay, 1995 is Chrono Trigger. Should be no surprise to many people. It's just one of the greatest RPGs of all time, not just for 1995, but yeah, of course in 1995 I'm going to choose Chrono Trigger. I love Chrono Trigger. It's I played it when I was a kid, loved it. It's got really everything. Aged quite well because it's got the 2D graphics, of course. But then you have very memorable characters. You have a memorable storyline with time travel and everything, and you have memorable music, and the gameplay is solid as well. So really nothing much to criticize about Chrono Trigger. It's pretty much considered by most people to be a masterpiece, right? A masterpiece. So yeah. Brings back memories whenever I play it. So I did play the original 95 version on Super Nintendo, although I think the definitive version is probably the PlayStation version that came out a little bit later, because that one has the opening animations and everything. I think, yeah, probably the PlayStation version is the best one. I would say there is the DS version, but I don't really play DS games on my channel because, you know, it's like the weirdness of emulating 2 screens. So I didn't play any of the DS stuff. So yeah, no, I didn't play the DS version, but I think the PS1 version is probably... as of right now, since Chrono Trigger has never really been remastered or remade, I think the PS1 version is probably the way to go. But yeah, this is the original 1995 Super Nintendo version. So what can I say? Great game, great characters, great music, story, everything. Yeah, it's just a no-brainer pick for 1995. So another one of my childhood favorites. My pick for 1996 is Super Mario RPG. So Super Mario RPG, yeah, I played this a lot when I was a kid as well, just like with Chrono Trigger. Love playing this game as well. Overall, like this is just, I think this is when Square really was at its peak, was really in the 90s. So, man, so many great games from that era. But yeah, my favorite RPG from '96, Mario RPG. This is my favorite Mario RPG actually. I know there's Paper Mario and Mario and Luigi, but Super Mario RPG, the original one. There's a remake now as well, and I think the remake one is probably the one to get because it's more readily available and it's on the Switch. But this is the original Super Nintendo version that I played here.
Second party member.
And in a way, like, yeah, this isometric view, you know, with the pixelated sprites might have more charm to it. But yeah, you have Mario and you have the cast of Mario characters done in a very Mario fashion. And it's actually very interesting because it's done in a Mario way, but it's not like it's set. I mean, it's got some original stuff in it as well, right? So some characters like Mallow and Gino, for example, are pretty original to this game, but they look like they belong in kind of Mario game. So really, I think what's great is that they made the combat and the storyline, the characters and everything just feel like it belongs in a Mario game, but also made it an RPG and the RPG is generally really fun. So yeah, if you just look at the combat here, they made it like very fun to play, and really like made it in a way that like Mario uses a hammer and you have to use a timing attack here. Like, it's not like overly violent or brutal or anything like that. There's a lot of humor and stuff in this game as well. So the music is actually one of my favorite soundtracks of the Super Nintendo. So really, yeah, it's I think really Nintendo and Square knocked it out of the park with this collaboration. So anyways, pick for 1996. Well, one of my favorite RPGs of that era is Super Mario RPG. Okay, so for 1997, my pick is Albert Odyssey, Legend of Edion for the Sega Saturn. And some of you guys might think I'm crazy for not picking Final Fantasy VII. I have to say that, okay, yeah, I did play Final Fantasy VII, the original one on my channel, but I'm not going to pick it. Reason is because FF7 to me has always been a little bit overrated. Like, it's a good game, it's a good RPG. Of course, it's one of the greatest RPGs in terms of impact and influence, but it's actually not my favorite Final Fantasy game. And I have another Final Fantasy game on this list that's not Final Fantasy VII. So for my own rule, I can't really pick two mainline Final Fantasy games in this video, so yeah, no FF7 here. And and another reason I play this game is I think this game is so underrated.
Thank you so much, you big, strong hunk
I love the
of
localization in this game. See, let's look at that localization, you big, strong hunk of manhood.
She has a way of getting into me, huh?
Oh man, I love the dialogue in this game. The dialogue in this game is awesome.
She just pushed me there.
Albert Odyssey was an unexpected gem for me when I played it. I ended up really loving this game. Yeah, it's I highly recommend for those of you guys who like have the time to check out emulators and emulation. Check out Albert Odyssey for the Sega Saturn. I know Sega Saturn is not the easiest console to get working for emulation, but
I like that it doesn't take
man, it's worth it because this game, it's a Saturn exclusive. Yeah, I think this and Panzer Dragoon Saga are just like reasons to you know, to emulate Saturn basically. Okay, the combat isn't like that like new or fresh or anything like that, but I think it's like just a fun dialogue in this game. So it's the characters in this game are really quirky and stuff. So yeah, overall, and plus you know the appearance and sprites, like, and that's the other thing is like this is a 2D game with 2D sprites. It ages much better than Final Fantasy VII. Final Fantasy VII, I can't even go back to it because I get an eyesore because it's an early 3D game. It hasn't aged very well. Like, yeah, like for that era, like early 3D games, they really did not age well, and honestly, like, like there's even better looking Final Fantasy games even on that same system, right? Final Fantasy VIII and Final Fantasy IX, I think, are better looking than Final Fantasy VII. So, yeah, I did not pick FF7. I know some of you guys are going to be saying, "Well, you're crazy for not picking FF7 for the best RPG of 1997." No, for me, it's Albert Odyssey. Like, I had more fun playing this game. It's got great dialogue, very funny. Look, you're extremely weird, but I think I love you. Like, what kind of you know, dialogue you find this in other like RPGs?
I understand the attractions from that.
Right? Like, how many other RPGs should have this kind of dialogue? Working Designs did such a great job translation.
It's a terrible
translating this game.
And play the helpless game well, but I have
so, anyways, yes, I enjoyed playing this more than
bad news
FF7,
for
so
someone
that's why
trying to
it's
get
going to be
some
my
serious
pick for 1997. Albert Odyssey, Legend of Adian. Very underrated. Highly recommend
That's
people
a
check
funny
this out.
response.
I mean, the Saturn has some gems, right? Just people don't know too much about it because the
that's
Sega
propaganda.
Saturn, it's not a popular
She
console,
waves
but
to
it does have some gems like this.
I like that she waved to me.
Okay, my pick for 1998 is Xenogears. So this is, I think, a fairly well-known PS1 RPG. Yeah, Xenogears is great. First of all, the graphics are kind of unique in my opinion because it's got this 2D pseudo 3D look. It's got like the 3D backgrounds, but it's also not like fully 3D as well. So yeah, it's got this pretty interesting graphical design, and I think it aged pretty well in my opinion. Better than a lot of other RPGs from that era anyways. So yeah, it's got the pseudo like cell shaded or like, yeah, well, I don't know what technique they're using, but yeah, this combination 2D 3D look there. Characters are very memorable. The story is pretty insane actually. Like even in the first moments of the game, you have like, you know, these mechs destroying the village and everything. There's mechs in this game, so that's another great reason to like it if you like mechs. This is a mecha game as well. The combat is very interesting as well. So you actually have a combo-based combat system. So if you look here, just yeah, doing an attack is turn-based, but it's also like kind of like combo-based. So yeah, it's pretty interesting combat system in my opinion. So a little bit different there. It's pretty cool. And yeah, so overall, I really love Big Xenogears. I think out of the Xeno series, if you consider Xenosaga, Xenoblade, like to be kind of the same, well, same series, then I still think Xenogears is the best one. There's never been an official sequel, even though like a lot of people know that Xenogears is kind of unfinished, especially on the second disc. It's a long game, but yeah, it's not like really a finished product in many ways, but it's still great. It's still an all-time great RPG, especially for the PS1. So yeah, there's never been an official sequel. Don't know really the reason why. Yeah, I think that Square should definitely come back to this title at least some point, because yeah, this got very memorable characters, a very memorable story, and overall it's one of the best RPGs on the PS1, which is saying a lot because PS1 is like one of the best systems for JRPGs. So yeah, Xenogears is my pick for 1998. Okay, so my pick for 1999 is Suikoden 2. This is also one of my personal favorites, one of my favorite games on the PS1. And PS1 has so many great RPGs. Suikoden 2 is based on a Chinese folktale. It's based on Outlaws of the Marsh, or Water Margin, if you guys have read that great Chinese novel. The combat system is unique, as you guys can see here. You can recruit many characters in this game, and normally you have this turn-based combat system, which is kind of from the side and from the front, from the back, I mean. So it's got an interesting combat system, and this is not the only combat system you see, because there's other bigger combat system, like a bigger combat system where if you have bigger armies and stuff, it's a different interface and everything. It's a different view. But anyways, that's pretty cool. That Suikoden 2 has multiple combat systems, I guess. Both very interesting. The graphics have aged pretty well because it's a 2D style, and the graphics just actually look really gorgeous. And I think they're coming out with a remaster soon, so I'm watching out for that remaster. But it's a great looking game. Yeah, this beautiful 2D sprites and everything's aged very well compared to a lot of other 3D RPGs on the system, like Vagrant Story or FF7. I would say did not age as well. Legend of Dragoon, basically, these games did not age as well because they're using early 3D graphics. But Suikoden 2, yeah, this aged really well, and it's got the characters and it's got the story. It's based on the classic Chinese folktale, music. Really, yeah, it's just an all-time great JRPG, I think. So, anyways, that's why it has to be my pick for 1999. Simply one of the best RPGs of its era, and just one of the best JRPGs, period. I think I had this in my top 15 JRPGs, you know, in my video, counting down the top. I would think it was like top 25 JRPGs or whatever, but Suikoden I think was in my top 15. So, anyways, you guys know it's good. It's just one of the all-time great JRPGs. All right, so for 2000, I'm gonna go with Skies of Arcadia. So this is probably one of the best games for the Dreamcast. For RPGs on the Dreamcast, I think it's probably either this one or Grandia 2. So yeah, Grandia 2 is also another one. I think it's pretty close. I mean, Lunar 2 Eternal Blue Complete's also really good too, and yeah, Grandia 2 is also really good. But I'm gonna go with Skies of Arcadia. I think this game never got like a proper sequel, unfortunately, but I do like the atmosphere and setting of this game and the characters and everything. Like just being like kind of the sky pirate. You're just like piloting a flying ship. And yeah, I mean, more traditional RPG combat, turn-based combat here. But overall, I think this game has held well throughout the years. Even though it's kind of like an early 3D game, it still holds up fairly well in terms of the gameplay. So yeah, definitely one of the standout RPG titles, I would say, of the era, and certainly for the Dreamcast, right? This and Grandia 2 really were probably the best RPGs for the Dreamcast. So yeah. I think anyone who's played Skies of Arcadia, yeah, they know that it's a great game. So, yeah, I think that unfortunately it's only ever been re-released for GameCube, and it hasn't really gotten a remaster or anything. Unfortunately, like Grandia 2 got a remaster, Grandia 1 and Grandia 2 both got a remaster, right? But Skies of Arcadia, yeah, I haven't seen a remaster of this game. Like, there really should be one, because yeah, this game is. Yeah, it's too good of a game to be stuck in that, you know, in that era, right? It's just that generation of Dreamcast and GameCube. I hope that it will get re-released someday. Let's just say that. So, yeah, definitely, I love the setting, the characters, the traditional RPG gameplay, and everything. I still think it holds up really well. Yeah, very, very charming game. So, Skies of Arcadia is going to be my pick for 2000. It slightly beats out Lunar 2 and Grandia 2 for my pick for this year. Okay, my pick for 2001 is Golden Sun for the Game Boy Advance. And yeah, this is another one of my childhood favorites. I played this a lot when I was a kid on emulator. Golden Sun is I think this and Fire Emblem and Final Fantasy Tactics Advance, like these are probably the best RPGs on the Game Boy Advance. And yeah, Golden Sun actually 1 and 2 are both good. They're actually kind of the same game because it's essentially the same game. It's just two parts of the same game. The first one is better known because yeah, it's the beginning of the story. But yeah, I really love playing this. The only thing is yes, the random encounters can get a bit annoying and everything. But the puzzles and everything, I think, yeah, some of the puzzles can actually be pretty annoying as well. But I enjoyed figuring them out. I mean, I beat both of these games, Golden Sun and Golden Sun 2. Golden Sun is actually just a precursor to Golden Sun 2. So it basically ends on a cliffhanger because Golden Sun is meant to be the continuation. But yeah, I mean, it's got memorable characters, it's got pretty good music, it's got a great combat system, using the Jin system basically is combat system here. And yeah, I really loved playing it when I was a kid. So again, more of a sentimental pick, but I do really like Golden Sun. And the combat system, this is from Camelot, so it's from the same developers as Shiny Force. So if the combat system looks like Shiny Force, that's because it's the same developers. So yeah, overall, it's got pretty much everything. Like everything is just done really well for Golden Sun. I think this is definitely one of the best games on the GBA. So it's my pick for 2001. Okay, so my pick for 2002 is Morrowind, Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind, that is. So yeah, this game is considered to be a huge jump up for the Elder Scrolls series. I mean, I played all the Elder Scrolls games, by the way. I played Arena and Daggerfall, which are the two Elder Scrolls games before this. Yeah, Morrowind is just a huge step up from Daggerfall. So Daggerfall, in terms of actual amount of stuff you can like explore, could be more because there's like a lot of like procedurally randomly generated dungeons in that game, but it doesn't have the depth that Morrowind has. Morrowind technically is a smaller game than Daggerfall in terms of you know, amount of dungeons and stuff, but it's deeper. Like there's more unique things to do in Morrowind. It's just a deeper game. Huge step up for the Elder Scrolls series. I think Morrowind, Oblivion, Skyrim, like all these games, like you can consider to be like people debate, right? Elder Scrolls fans still debate to this day which one is actually the best Elder Scrolls game. Is it Morrowind? Is it Oblivion? Is it Skyrim? So all three of these games have pros and cons to them. There's things that they do well, there's things they don't do as well. But I mean, for 2002, yeah, this is pretty much going to be my pick. Morrowind was great when it came out, especially even today. Going back to it, not too bad. Of course, it's early 3D, so it looks a little bit rough, but I can still go back to it and play it with no problem. It's still a great game to go back to. So I think. I'm not sure. I don't think they released any kind of remastered version of this game. So I know that Bethesda remastered and re-released Skyrim so many times, but for some reason they have not really re-released Morrowind or Oblivion that often. So again, actually any of the other Elder Scrolls games, actually, it's really only Skyrim that got re-released like 1,000 times. So I don't know why Skyrim got so many re-releases, but the earlier Elder Scrolls games did not. But yeah, ton of depth in this game. I mean, you can go crazy with the character creation, with the dialogue options. You can explore around, do so many things because it's very open-ended gameplay, right? It's all about the exploration and everything. So really, you can just spend hours and hours in this game. Like, you can see just how much dialogue is in this game, and yeah, it's a ton of stuff you can do in Morrowind. So yeah. Anyways, it's gonna be my pick for 2002. It's an all-time great Western RPG. What can I say? And a lot of people still consider this the best Elder Scrolls game. You know, and in some ways, you know, it has advantages over Oblivion and Skyrim. So okay, so it could be me in the minority here, but I think Final Fantasy Tactics Advance is just as good as Final Fantasy Tactics. So I picked this for 2003. One of my favorite games for the Game Boy Advance. So Golden Sun, Fire Emblem, Sacred Stones, and Final Fantasy Tactics Advance. These are my 3 favorite RPGs, I would say, for Game Boy Advance. Yeah, Final Fantasy Tactics Advance is the one I played a lot when I was a kid. This one actually, like, it is basically, to me, just as good as Final Fantasy Tactics. It's like, okay, it seems like more kiddie, right? Because it involves, like, you know, not as mature of a setting as Final Fantasy Tactics for PS1, but to me, the story and the characters are just as memorable in Tactics Advance. So yeah, to me, this is just as good. I mean, the mechanics, the gameplay, the characters, the storyline, it's surprisingly good for a game that looks like it's for kids, but it's not just for kids. Like, it's actually got mature stuff in it as well. It just, like, on the outside, it doesn't look quite as dark and mature as Final Fantasy Tactics for PS1 does. But if you play Tactics Advance, then honestly, to me, it's just as good of a game, which means it's an all-time great game, because Tactics for PS1 is an all-time great game, right? So yeah, for me, Tactics Advance is right up there with the original Tactics, and it's a great tactical RPG, one of my all-time favorites. Very deep in the gameplay, right? You can choose many job classes and everything. Yeah, just overall, I think this is a great game, especially for Game Boy Advance. So it's my pick for 2003. Okay, so my pick for 2004 is Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door, and I picked this because honestly I don't have too many games I played from 2004. It could be because I didn't play many. Actually, I don't really play many PS2 games on my channel. If I play PS2, then I think I would have more. But it's been yeah, PS2. I've kind of avoided PS2 because there's way too many games on PS2, and it's yeah, they take up a lot of space. So yeah, Paper Mario: Thousand-Year Door. I think this is probably considered the best Paper Mario game, so much so that it actually got a remake for the Nintendo Switch. So, and I did play the remake that came out this year as well. But yeah, this one is a pretty good game. I mean, for me, Super Mario RPG is still my favorite Mario RPG. But after Super Mario RPG, I think Paper Mario: Thousand-Year Door is probably next. Overall, yeah, this game still has some of the charm, and, you know, the cutesiness, I guess, and the charm. Just doesn't have as many of the same, you know, characters or the same kind of overall mechanics of Super Mario RPG, but or the music. But overall, I think, like, compared to the other Mario RPG games, this one is pretty good. So yeah, overall it's got solid mechanics, and it's built on some of the mechanics of Super Mario RPG, especially the timing thing, right? So there's a combat system where whoops, yeah. So this, for example, let's see. Okay, so yeah, this is a combat system where you would stomp on a Goomba's head right here, and you would time it, and that's really taken from Super Mario RPG. Not too many characters in Paper Mario Thousand Year Door. Like, you can't recruit that many characters. Like in Super Mario RPG, you can recruit 7 characters. I think that's because that one was a Square game. And I think that's why that one was like so good and so polished. This one not being a Square game, this one being like an internal Nintendo developed game. Yeah, it's probably why it doesn't have some of those features that Super Mario RPG has. But still, I think that when it comes to Nintendo internally developed RPGs, Paper Mario Thousand Year Door is probably one of their best. So, yep, still got pretty good charm, you know, for the, especially, you know, the way that the world is, right? It's like it's papercraft essentially. So that's a pretty unique aesthetic. And yeah, overall, it's still got a lot of humor in it, a lot of charm in it. So, anyways, that's my pick for 2004 is Paper Mario Thousand Year Door. Okay, so my pick for 2005 is Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2: The Sith Lords, and I actually played this probably more than Knights of the Old Republic 1, just because, yeah, like I had this one more like for a longer period of time on the original Xbox is when I played it. So I played this as a kid, and therefore there is a bit of favoritism here. But yeah, Knights of the Old Republic 2 is very solid. A lot of people like the original one better, but for me, I think 2 is just as good as 1, honestly. Yeah, so what's great about this game is that first developed by Obsidian is one of Obsidian's strengths as a developer. They can take existing IPs and engines developed by other creators, in this case BioWare developed the engine, and yeah, they can continue their success and make it their own, like they did with Fallout New Vegas and many other games. So yeah, Sith Lords, really it's set in the same universe as the first one, but you know, a bit new characters and everything. Overall, really enjoyed it. I think for those of you guys who are Star Wars fans, this is considered to be one of the best Star Wars games. Like Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2 are considered to be some of the best Star Wars games. It really like creates its own lore and own story that's kind of free from George Lucas's stuff, so it can kind of be more original in that way. So it's not limited by the Skywalker story. And yeah, the amount of things you can do in this game, like, you know, go to different spaceports and like different quests, you know, trade with other people, you can control other characters, like here I'm controlling this droid and everything. Just the amount of stuff you can do in this game really makes it feel immersive, like I'm actually in a Star Wars universe. And that's a big deal, right? So like it is a really immersive game in terms of like putting me into that Star Wars universe, the amount of things that you can do in this game. And the combat is pretty good too, I'd say. So yeah, it's your turn-based combat done in kind of like a Western RPG style, I guess you could say. But yeah, the fact that, you know, in the Star Wars universe, I think they did this really well. This is just one of my favorite Star Wars games, period. Yeah, what BioWare and Obsidian actually did with this, you know, the license is pretty incredible to me. So, anyways, Star Wars Knights of the Republic 2 might be my pick for one of my favorite Star Wars games, actually. And yeah, one of my favorite Western RPGs. I think this was on my list, top 5 Western RPGs, actually. I really enjoyed playing KOTOR 2. So yeah, it's my pick for 2005. Okay, so my pick for 2006 is Mother 3 for the Game Boy Advance. Another great RPG for the Game Boy Advance, which I kind of forgot to mention before because I wasn't thinking of Mother 3 because it was like Japanese only. But hey, I remember I played this on my channel. It's a fan translation. So yes, Mother 3 unfortunately has never been brought over to the West. I don't know why. I think a lot of people have been wanting Mother 3 to be officially translated. But yeah, it's 2024, we still don't have an official Mother 3 translation. But yeah, I think just play the fan translation as I'm doing here. This is a great game. It's a continuation of the Mother series. It's kind of separate from, you know, the stories of Earthbound, but it's got a similar interface, right? It's got similar graphics and interface. You got this really unique combat system with the rolling counters from a first-person perspective, which is unique to Mother, the Mother series, I mean. And yeah, it's got a really crazy storyline that's very depressing and dark. So, I mean, Earthbound already was kind of like that. It's weird and dark, but Mother 3 even more darker than Earthbound is. And also that makes this game really unique, right? It's just like, it's not really the typical story you'd find in a video game, and just the Mother series in general has always been very quirky and unique, and it's inspired so many like subsequent RPGs since. So anyways, Mother 3 just is one of my favorite games from this era, one of my favorite RPGs on the Game Boy Advance, and yeah, overall, it's hard to say whether, like, Mother 3 I think is actually better than Earthbound. I know Earthbound is played by more people because it's the only one that's officially translated, but for me, Mother 3 is just as good, if not better, than Earthbound. So yeah, it's characters, setting, the whole like crazy dark story, and the weird, the weird quirkiness of the Mother series, right? So the weird things that that can happen in this game, all the different like storylines and dialogue. This is kind of weird. And the setting being like not a fantasy setting, but rather like kind of a contemporary American setting is very different as well. So yeah, a lot of things make Mother 3 very unique. Hey, so 2007, we're going with Jeanne d'Arc here. Jeanne d'Arc is a PSP exclusive tactical RPG. I think recently it was made available actually on PlayStation Network, but yeah, it's still never really been re-released in physical form, that is. So yeah, PSP exclusive pretty much. And of course it's based on the story of Joan of Arc, as you would guess from the title. Yeah, it's a surprisingly good game. Like, you wouldn't expect a game based on Joan of Arc to be that good, but it's actually surprisingly really good. It's yeah, tactical RPG, as you guys can see here. If you guys are familiar with Fire Emblem or Tactics Ogre, or Final Fantasy Tactics, then you probably know what this game is about gameplay-wise. But yeah, the story is pretty nice. It's let's just say it's a lot better than a game starring Joan of Arc has any right to be. So yeah, it's actually pretty good. It's by Level 5, the same developers who made Ni no Kuni, if you guys are familiar with that game. So overall, yeah, this is one of my favorite games for the PSP, and certainly I think it's one of the best tactical RPGs on the system and for that era, actually. So I think more people should check it out. It's been underrated for a long time because it was only on PSP. And because, like, yeah, let's face it, a game starring Joan of Arc is not going to have a huge appeal, but it's actually surprisingly really good. So yeah, those of you guys who have played Joan of Arc know Jeanne d'Arc know what I'm talking about. This is actually a really good, solid tactical RPG. So that's my pick for 2007. So my pick for 2008 is Fallout 3. I actually did not play too many games from 2008 on my channel, so there wasn't too many picks here. Fallout 3 really did stand out to me because this was a game I played this one a lot back in the day when it first came out for Xbox 360. And yeah, I got all the DLC even for this game. I bought it, and yeah, even Broken Steel and everything, I beat it. This was actually my first Bethesda game that I played, believe it or not. What I'm talking about is like core Bethesda games, right? So I played this before any Elder Scrolls games, just because the setting appealed to me more. This being like a sci-fi post-apocalyptic setting was really interesting to me. So yeah, played the hell out of this game, loved it. So it's not quite as good as New Vegas. For those of you guys who don't know, New Vegas is a better game. But when this first came out in 2008, this was absolutely great. I think it got so many Game of the Year awards. Yeah, it's just for the open world, just being in the apocalypse, like, it's so different than Fallout 1 and 2. And I have played Fallout 2 before, so I know either what the old isometric Fallout games are like. But the way that Bethesda adapted this into 3D is great. Yeah, they basically just like, yeah, they used whatever engine they would use for Oblivion. They kind of modified it for Fallout 3. But being able to explore the Capital Wasteland here, all the different NPCs that you can meet, all the different quests that you can go through, and oh yeah, Three Dog on the radio. Three Dog, yeah, he's a funny character too. Yeah, the old school radio tunes and everything, right? Like the ink spots, like overall, oh man, what an aesthetic for this game. Yeah, just overall, I think it's just it is one of the best games of that year. It's not just for RPGs. For 2008, it won many Game of the Year awards. So talking about open world, post-apocalyptic setting, being able to just explore and do what you want. Yeah, I spent many hours on this game. So anyways, Fallout 3 is going to be my pick for 2008. Okay, so my pick for 2009 is going to be Star Ocean Second Evolution for the PSP. This is a remake or enhanced remake of Star Ocean 2, and This was actually the definitive way of playing Star Ocean 2 before the Star Ocean Second Story R came out, which came out last year. Yeah, so nowadays, if you want to play Star Ocean 2, go play Star Ocean Second Story R, the remake. That one is just gorgeous. The graphics in it are just amazing. But Second Evolution is still pretty good as well. This was previously the definitive way of playing this game. Star Ocean 2 is considered by many, including myself, as the best Star Ocean game. It's just got the best story, the best characters. And yeah, just set in the sci-fi setting. That's what Star Ocean's about, right? It's in a sci-fi universe, and yeah, to me, it's like the characters Rena and Claude are very memorable. The story is quite memorable as well, and just overall, like, I really like the setting of this game too. And I think Second Evolution is certainly a great way to play it still. Yeah, so if you don't have a Switch and you can't get Second Story R, then definitely check out Second Evolution for the PSP as well, because this is still a pretty good remake. The graphics and everything are, yeah, they still stand the test of time because they're still 2D, so it's not aged too much. And you have anime cutscenes in this one as well, so that's a nice touch. So overall, it's and you got the full voice dialogue, acting, and everything. Yeah. So I just find the characters in Star Ocean 2 to be quite charming and memorable in the storyline as well. So I think for most people, Star Ocean 2, I mean, some people like Star Ocean 3, but for me, Star Ocean 2 is probably my favorite Star Ocean game. And yep, Second Evolution is still a good way to play it. Maybe not the best, maybe not the definitive way of playing it now, because that's the Star Ocean Second Story R, but still a good way to play it. Is if you don't have a Switch, then pick up Second Evolution. But we're talking 2009 here, right? I had to pick from games released in 2009. I'm picking Star Ocean Second Evolution as my favorite RPG from 2009.
Like you.
Okay, so for 2010, I'm going Persona 3 Portable. Now this is like not the best way to play Persona 3. The same thing as Star Ocean 2. Like there's a better way now. It's called Persona 3 Reload, which came out this year. And Persona 3 Reload is the definitive way of playing Persona 3. However, yeah, Portable is still interesting. I mean, you can play as the female protagonist in this one. Is the main feature added. But the thing is, I didn't actually have many RPGs on my channel that I played from 2010. It was either this or Fallout New Vegas. And I really wanted to pick Fallout New Vegas, but I would pick Fallout 3. Part of my rule of this video is I can't pick, I should avoid picking more than one game from the same franchise. Okay, so I can't pick Fallout New Vegas. So I guess I'll go with Persona 3 Portable. Which also means I can't pick any other Persona game for later in this video, but that's fine. Persona 3 is actually one of my sentimental favorites because I grew up. Actually, Persona 3 was the first Persona game I played back in PS2. I think that was 2007, 2006, 2007. Yeah. So Persona 2 on PS2 was Persona 3 on PS2. That was the first Persona game I played. So it does have like kind of a sentimental favoritism from me. And Portable, okay, it's not like necessarily just strictly better than Persona 3, because Persona 3 FES actually, that one added the extra ending, and it also added actually the ability to move around when you're in the when you're actually in the gameplay wise, to be able to talk to people when you move around. So that's actually pretty huge. You missed that from Persona 3 Portable. From Persona 3 Portable, you just have like this little like pointer thing that you can click around, which is obviously not as good as being able to control your protagonist. So it misses the ability to control your protagonist, which is actually pretty huge. But you can play as a female protagonist, so there's the other side of that as well. Anyways, the rest of the game is Persona 3. It's a dungeon crawler. You get to establish social relationships with different party members. It's got great music, very memorable music. I think Persona is well known for having some of the best music in JRPGs. So Persona 3 soundtrack, I love it. One of my favorites. I think Persona 4 and Persona 3 are probably my favorite soundtracks. But yeah, Persona 3 Portable, I think definitely one of the best RPGs on the PSP. And there's a lot of good RPGs on PSP. I think Lunar got a remake on PSP. Yeah, like I said, Star Ocean 1 and 2 both got a remake on PSP. And then Persona 3 3 Portable came out PSP. So a lot of good RPGs, but I still think Persona 3 Portable, yeah, is definitely one of the RPGs to try out. And Jeanne d'Arc as well, yeah, because I already covered that game too. So yeah, Persona 3 Portable is going to be my pick for 2010. There wasn't too many options. It was either this or Fallout New Vegas that I played on my channel. But yeah, I can't pick Fallout New Vegas since I already picked Fallout 3. So yeah, let's go Persona 3 Portable for 2010. And the combat is your standard, it's turn-based combat, but with summons, right? So you use Persona 3 summons, and let me tell you, the Persona 3 summons is pretty cool because you use evokers, which is basically like a pistol to your head, and it's like kind of evoking like you're shooting yourself in the head, and a persona comes out. So I think this is a really cool way of summoning a persona. Still one of my favorite ways compared to Persona 4 and 5. I think it's super cool to summon your persona in Persona 3 Persona 3. So yeah, you play as the female protagonist, which is something you can only do in the portable version. Okay, so my pick for 2011 is Deus Ex Human Revolution, which is actually my favorite Deus Ex game. I love this game for many reasons. So first of all, it's a cyberpunk game, and I love the cyberpunk setting. And another thing about Human Revolution is that, yeah, the locale in the environment. So they have a cyberpunk version of Shanghai in this game, where the people actually speak actual Mandarin in this game. Like, they got Mandarin voice actors here. It's really funny, some of the Mandarin things that they say. But overall, I mean, yeah, this game is great. I mean, yeah, it's probably my favorite Deus Ex games. I don't think Mankind Divided was quite as good, but Human Revolution, I think, really hit it out of the park. It's a combination of being kind of open world, semi-open world, I guess you could say, being able to explore these different cyberpunk cities. You have multiple cities, actually, in this game that you go to. I like Shanghai the best, but multiple cities that you can go to, this futuristic version of all these different cities, being able to augment yourself, right, with different augmentations and stuff. You have the choice of, like, you know, being able, like, it's a first-person shooter, of course, as well as for Deus Ex. So, you know, you can either do the first-person combat, shooting them, or you can do a stealth route as well. So many different ways you can approach this game. Overall, yeah, it's just, it's probably one of my favorite games of that year, not just for RPGs, for 2011. I think just one of the best releases of that year. I'm not sure how many Game of the Year awards it got, but for sure, I think this was my favorite, one of my favorite games of that year, 2011. So certainly, I had to pick it for yeah, my favorite RPG of 2011 as well. So, Adam Jensen, man, is I mean, the character is I mean, I love the voice acting in this game, right?
You want me to kill China?
I never asked for this. He talks like Batman. So it's pretty funny. The hacking minigame is actually pretty cool in this game as well. So like you have to like figure out different nodes and stuff like that. It's actually a pretty cool hacking minigame. I play many hacking minigames. I think Deus Ex has one of the best. Human Revolution, that is. So. Again, I think I like this. This is like the hacking minigame, yeah. You can hack, you can like you do different like nodes and stuff like that. You have to do it before the timer runs out. Like, it's actually a pretty good minigame in my opinion, as far as like hacking goes. So one of my favorite hacking minigames in a video game. So anyways, my pick for 2011, my favorite RPG from that year. Okay, so for 2012, there isn't too many choices actually, because I didn't actually play too many 2012 RPGs on my channel, but I'll go with Tales of Graces F, because I think this is probably one of the best Tales games. Yeah, it's actually the beginning of the story where they find this this girl, which is kind of like a strange girl, I guess, with interesting powers. It kind of reminds me of the beginning of Tales of Eternia as well. But yeah, the graphics in this game, yeah, it looks very like kid-like or childish, I guess, because most of the main characters are like kids and stuff. But at the same time, it's charming as well. And I think, yeah, overall the characters are charming, and the gameplay is your standard Tales stuff, which is always I know it's solid. I'm not gonna say any of the Tales games are like, you know, all-time games or all-time RPGs or something, but they're pretty solid. Yeah, the Tales of Graces, not my favorite Tales game, but it's definitely an upper tier Tales game, I'd say. And yeah, the story for this game is pretty good as well. So I think it's definitely in the upper tier of Tales games, and I think probably most people will agree Tales of Graces F is in the upper tier. I would probably say my favorites personally like Berseria or Vesperia. But then right after that is like the next tier of like Eternia / Tales of Destiny 2 and Abyss and Arise as well. But then Tales of Grace SF comes pretty close to that as well. I think it's definitely better than Tales of Symphonia, which is kind of an overrated entry in my opinion. But yeah, I think Tales of Grace SF is a pretty solid JRPG overall. So, anyways, yeah, that's gonna be my pick for 2012. I didn't play too many 2012 RPGs. Okay, so for 2013, it's going to be Fire Emblem Awakening, and this is my favorite Fire Emblem game. This is the game that actually saved Fire Emblem because Fire Emblem wasn't selling very well, and then Awakening came out and sold really well, and that basically saved the Fire Emblem franchise. Yeah, Awakening is a great game. The thing is, the only thing is like, for me, the attack animations are not as good as the 2D Fire Emblem games. Like I prefer the Game Boy Advance ones in terms of animations, like the attack animations. So when I played like Sacred Stones, which is my favorite Game Boy Advance Fire Emblem, yeah, the attack animations, especially the critical attacks, are all really cool. So that's the one thing about Fire Emblem, because it's 3D, it doesn't have those kind of charming 2D attack animations. But what Fire Emblem Awakening does have is great characters, and that interplay between characters that you get with the support conversations is really nice. And yeah, you get a pretty good story. I mean, this story-wise, Fire Emblem games are kind of similar, but yeah, I would say the thing that makes Awakening special is the interplay between characters. And not all Fire Emblem games have great characters. Like Fates, for example, that came out after this. Fates, the characters in Fates are just not as interesting as Awakening. Not to say Fates is a bad game. I mean, it's basically similar to Awakening in terms of gameplay, but yeah, it does not have the same character interplay that Awakening has. Awakening has some of the best characters in the Fire Emblem game. So, anyways, my pick for 2013. Also, probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite, 3DS game. So, yeah, just an overall great Fire Emblem game. Tactical RPG. If you guys haven't played Fire Emblem before, you guys can clearly tell it's a tactical game. But yeah, definitely one of my favorite tactical RPGs and my favorite Fire Emblem game. 2014 is going to be Fable Anniversary. This is the enhanced version of Fable, which came out 10 years before this one. I played the original Fable for Xbox, the original Xbox. And yeah, it's a very interesting game because it's one of the first games to let you basically like choose to become either the good guy or bad guy, I guess. So there's some like moral decisions, some karma system in place. I mean, Elder Scrolls kind of had that too. Fallout had that too, but Fable is one of those games that, yeah, you can choose to be a good guy or a bad guy. It's really up to you. It's a typical Western RPG in that sense of giving you lots of choice. The action RPG aspects are okay. It's kind of open world in a sense. You can just go across the map and just go to whatever city you want and beat up whatever bad guys you can find and stuff. The combat itself is a little bit repetitive, can get a little bit repetitive at times, but yeah, eventually, I mean, you can, in the later Fable games, you can either like marry and have children and stuff, but in this Fable 1, you can still like own a house and whatever, so.
Oh no, it's dead.
Not quite as good as Fable 2. I think Fable 2 is probably, I think Fable 2 is probably my favorite Fable game, but yeah, Fable Anniversary. I would say this is still a pretty solid game. Yeah, just like the whole like Fable like franchise of you know, choosing your own hero and choosing your own path and everything is pretty innovative for the time it came out. So this is probably the best way to play the original Fable game is the Anniversary Edition. Unfortunately, Microsoft has not remastered or re-released Fable 2 and 3. I'm not sure why. Still waiting for 2 and 3, and 2 is actually the best Fable in my opinion. But yeah, Fable 1 is the only one that's ever gotten this re-release. So anyways, this is my pick for 2014. Okay, so 2015 is Undertale. This is a game I also talked about in my favorite games per year video. Yeah, this is, I mean, if I chose it for my favorite game for the year, then I'm also going to choose that as my favorite RPG of the year. So what's special about Undertale is, I would say this is probably one of the most highly acclaimed indie RPGs, and it's actually had an influence on modern indie RPGs as well. So this game is, I would say, quirky, very quirky and dark in ways, and it's probably gotten some inspiration from Earthbound and the Mother series, but it's also its own thing. like for the monsters, you don't have to always kill the monsters. You can like spare them. You can like there's other actions for the monsters. You don't have to kill them. But as you guys can see, the fighting system is very unique. The combat system, it's like you play a mini game, a different mini game, like for every monster basically. So that's pretty unique. It's from the same type of combat perspective as Earthbound and Mother. So it's from like this first-person perspective. But yeah, the mini game stuff, that's pretty unique to Undertale. And the fact that you can act differently per monster is also interesting. You don't even have to fight some of them. And yeah, this game is just, it's weird, it's quirky, the characters and the lore is actually very interesting. If you keep playing it, it gets very mysterious, and it gets pretty dark as well. So this game does have all that, and it's a retro style RPG, so it looks like it came from the Nintendo era, but yeah, it's a modern game, so it will, you know, please people who like to have that retro art style. So all in all, I think this is a great game. It's a great RPG, and just overall, I think this is it's a nice little indie game, retro game to pick up. Yeah, it's anyone who likes retro style RPGs and wants to play something a little bit different, weird, quirky, dark, then definitely check it out, Undertale. I think it's a very, very solid RPG. One of my favorites, actually. So, like all-time RPGs, I think this was actually pretty close. I think this was in my top 25 all-time RPGs, at least for Western RPGs, that is. So, yep, pretty good one. Okay, 2016 is Final Fantasy IX Remastered. Yes, this counts. I'm going with the remastered PC version. So yeah, Final Fantasy IX originally came out in the 90s, and remember when I said that Final Fantasy VII was not in this video, was not on my list, because personally I prefer Final Fantasy IX to Final Fantasy VII. I think 9 is just for me, right? 9 returns more to the traditional RPG roots of Final Fantasy. It's more of the traditional fantasy type setting. And it's just a very, like, overall it's a nice polished game. It's like you get traditional RPG gameplay, and I know some, like, the characters might not be the most memorable out of Final Fantasy games, but I still think it has a beautiful story. So all the characters are done in a chibi form, just to be more like, I guess, the retro 2D Final Fantasy style games. But yeah, this is my pick for mainline Final Fantasy games. I'm picking Final Fantasy IX Remastered, and my favorite RPG of 2016. Yeah, because this got released on PC. The remastered version got released on PC in 2016. So therefore, I'm allowed to pick it for this year. So, anyways, those guys have played Final Fantasy IX. You know, it's a game from the PS1 era, but yeah, the remastered version, I think this is still the best way to play it, because I don't think there's a remake. So unlike Final Fantasy VII, it did not get a remake. But there is this remastered version, though, you guys can always pick up. So I do recommend, if you want to play Final Fantasy IX, then check out Final Fantasy IX Remastered. It's got a very traditional Final Fantasy style gameplay here, with the traditional combat, right? Turn-based combat system here. And this is what I prefer as a kind of more of a traditional RPG guy. Like the newer Final Fantasy games, Final Fantasy 15 and 16 especially. 15 and 16 I felt like it was way too cutscene heavy, and it wasn't really Final Fantasy like. Yeah, 16 is almost like, yeah, you're playing like Nier or Devil May Cry or something. I didn't feel like you were playing Final Fantasy in a way. There's too many cutscenes and stuff. But Final Fantasy 9, just the right amount of cutscenes, not too much, not overwhelming. Like, I didn't have to sit through 40 minutes of cutscenes like I had to do for Final Fantasy 16. Just the right amount, and you get the traditional turn-based combat. So it's a very traditional RPG game in that sense. And yeah. Anyways, my pick for 2016, the remastered version of Final Fantasy 9. Great game, all-time RPG in my opinion. Okay, 2017 is Disgaea 5 Complete for Nintendo Switch. So this was also my pick for my favorite game in 2017, not just RPGs. But yeah, Disgaea 5 is my favorite Disgaea game. Disgaea is like a tactical RPG series. It's very, very deep. So you guys can grind on this game for like hundreds of hours if you wanted to. Like there's an end game, and then in the end game you can just keep on leveling up your guys. There's so many dungeons. Like every item is basically a dungeon. And you can see like even this game here, I beat Disgaea 5 and went to the end game, and
I can't throw.
all my guys are like level 900
There.
something here. They do like,
Dumb.
yeah, they're 200,000 health. They do like 50,000 damage.
Too far.
You see like people online on YouTube with guys that do like 100,000 or a million damage.
So stupid.
You know,
I can't reach her.
it's like the sky's the limit, like
Let's just
with
take
how
the
much
reach.
you can level up your characters and damage. So it's very, very deep. You can just grind. It's very grind heavy, but you can keep on grinding for like hundreds of hours. So it's for people who love to grind and just keep on grinding. There's really no limit. So anyways, I think Disgaea 5 has the best characters in my opinion out of any Disgaea game. The complete edition adds in characters from other NIS games and also the previous Disgaea games too. So you have essentially every Disgaea character in Disgaea 5 complete. Up to 5, that is. I didn't like 6 that much. 7 is better. I still think I prefer 5 to 7, but 7 is definitely better than 6. 6 wasn't that good. But yeah, characters in this game. The complete edition, you have like, yeah, pretty much all the NIS characters and all the other Disgaea characters too. So it's just a overall very complete game, as the title suggests. So Disgaea 5 complete. It's actually one of my favorite all-time JRPGs.
Can't throw in.
2018 is Monster Hunter World, and I know like for Monster Hunter, yeah, this series is like you either love it or hate it, right? Like it's not really like a game that you know, it's kind of like a polarizing game in that sense, because it's very much so like either hey, you love to just beat up on monsters, or you don't. It's yeah, it's one of those games where it's a little bit divisive in that way. But hey, Monster Hunter World is definitely one of the best in the series. A lot of people consider this the best Monster Hunter game. For me, I think Rise and World are pretty close. I might give Rise the edge because of the Japanese aesthetic. But yeah, both Rise and World are really good Monster Hunter games. Unlike a lot of other JRPGs, there's a lot of customization in Monster Hunter. So most JRPGs you have like you have a set character, right? But Monster Hunter is like maybe like more like Western RPGs in the sense that you customize your characters a bit. And of course, you have the beautiful cinematics and stuff, and it's a Capcom game, so you have the combat down. So the combat is pretty good in the Monster Hunter series, and while there's not like too much of a story, it's basically just go find monsters and go kill them and stuff. But I would say the intrigue of Monster Hunter World is the fact that World is a lot more, well, open world compared to previous Monster Hunter games. And I played Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate, but World is definitely a lot more open compared to Monster Hunter 4. And yeah, really like you can just go like anywhere and like start getting like different items, like really cool weapons. You get like wielding these giant weapons, taking down monsters and stuff. A lot of customization and everything. And yeah, the combat is very satisfying because it's Capcom. Capcom knows how to do their combat well. So yeah, maybe not to the extent of like a FromSoft game, but still, like the combat in Monster Hunter has always been pretty satisfying to me. So anyways, Monster Hunter World, maybe the best Monster Hunter game. Like I think it's pretty close with Rise, but yeah, Monster Hunter World is my pick for 20. Okay, 2019 is Disco Elysium. Disco Elysium is a very interesting RPG. So this is isometric style RPG. It's inspired by a lot of the Infinity Engine games, particularly Planescape Torment. And Planescape Torment is one of my favorite isometric RPGs. So I'm glad that it has that influence. So Disco Elysium is very narrative driven.
Okay.
Yeah, the dialogue in this game and yeah, the story and dialogue. Yeah, it's pretty much A++ tier or S tier, whatever you want to call it. It's probably one of the best you'll ever find in an RPG. It's very, very unique. Not much combat in this game, but that's because it's inspired by Planescape, which didn't have as much combat as other Dungeons and Dragons games. But Disco Elysium really takes it a step further. Really, not really any combat in this game. Just talking, but. The strength of that is that, yeah, the story, the characters, the dialogue, conversations, everything is very, very fleshed out in this game. So, yeah, overall, if you guys haven't played Disco Elysium, definitely give it a shot. Especially if you like isometric RPGs, this is definitely one of the greatest isometric RPGs. And especially if you're not so much into the combat, but you care a lot more about the dialogue and narrative of the game, then Disco Elysium is the game for you guys. So that's my pick for 2019. It's widely acclaimed. So. yeah, check it out if you. Okay, 2020 is Cyberpunk 2077, and yes, I know this game had a lot of issues when it came out, but it's since been improved a lot. I know CD Projekt Red did a lot to try to improve things. Yes, at the time I played this, it still had a lot of bugs and issues, but still a very nice game. So the thing about Cyberpunk, when it's actually like, you know, fully patched and everything, and you're running it on a really good computer, it's probably one of the best looking games I've ever seen. Yeah, and plus you get to explore this really immersive world, and you know, truly, like, you're talking about Cyberpunk games, like Deus Ex was one level and Cyberpunk just took it to the next level, but like the graphics is one of the best I've ever seen in any video game, and then you combine that with this open world Cyberpunk setting, yeah, what's not to like, you know? So overall, I think it's a really good game that unfortunately had launch issues, but it's since been improved a lot. And the DLC, Phantom Liberty, it was highly praised. So yeah, CD Projekt Red really did well in this one, and I preferred this to Witcher 3. I mean, Witcher 3 is a good game, of course, a great game, actually. I shouldn't just say good. Witcher 3 is an all-time great game. But I think Cyberpunk 27 is for me, just the setting. I prefer a sci-fi setting to fantasy settings in general. So yeah, I just like the setting of Cyberpunk more. So I prefer it over Witcher 3. And they're different games anyways. Witcher 3 is a third person. This game's a first person. So they're different games. But if you ask me to choose between the two, like CD Projekt Red games, yeah, I pick Cyberpunk over Witcher 3. So yeah, anyways, graphics are S tier in this game. And it's a pretty good, solid story as well. Yes, this game, okay, like this. Yeah, this game has a lot of issues when it came out.
This car's like low resolution too. It just hasn't rendered yet.
Yeah, there was a lot of issues with this game when it came out, but hey, it got patched, and that's the thing that matters, right?
What's this person doing?
It got patched later on, which is good. It fixed a lot of these issues. So, anyways, and once those issues are fixed, then what you have on your hands is a pretty good all-time RPG. So. Yeah, Cyberpunk 27 is really, really solid. So yeah, that's my pick for 20. Okay, so 2021 is Diablo 2 Resurrected. This is the remake of Diablo 2. And yeah, I would say this is probably the definitive way of playing Diablo 2. And you guys noticed I didn't mention Diablo 2 when it first came out, right? Like 2000, 2001, that was not my pick because I wanted to pick Diablo 2 Resurrected instead. So anyways, what's there to say about Diablo 2? Well, Resurrected is essentially the same game as Diablo 2, just with upgraded graphics and everything, and a little bit of quality of life improvements as well. So, like, yeah, being able to share your like storage and stuff, like, yeah, that's just good quality of life improvements. Overall, it's just an improved version of Diablo 2, and Diablo 2 is like an all-time RPG to begin with. It's just especially fun playing with friends. So it's fun, just be able to play with friends, and I wouldn't say that Diablo is like a great game for story, but in terms of gameplay, yeah, it's just fun being able to play, like especially like graduating on the different difficulties and stuff, looting creatures for items and stuff, being able to find the best build, optimizing your builds and everything. It's just fun being able to do that. So to do this with your friends, yeah, just finding loot, optimizing your build, just facing hordes and hordes of enemies with your friends. That's what's fun about Diablo 2. And Diablo 2 Resurrected is the best way to do that now, since it's just an enhanced version of Diablo 2. So, anyways, it's my pick for 2021. And oh yeah, in case you guys haven't noticed, this is the best Diablo game. Like, Diablo 3, yeah, a lot of people didn't like Diablo 3 because, yeah, it basically like nerfed or dumbed down some things for casuals, is what my friend wants to call it. I have a friend that's a huge Diablo fan, and he does not like Diablo 3 because he said it was dumbed down for casuals and stuff. Diablo 2 has a darker setting. Diablo 4 returns to that darker setting, but the problem with Diablo 4 is that it has way too many microtransactions, and that bogs down the gameplay a lot. So yeah, and plus the end game isn't quite as good. Like Diablo 3 at least had Paragon levels. Diablo 4 doesn't really have that. But Diablo 2 I would say is the most well balanced out of them all. So anyways, Diablo 2 Resurrected is probably the best Diablo game in my opinion. Okay, 2022 is Elden Ring. No surprise, actually. For those of you guys who watch my channel, I play a lot of Elden Ring. I play a lot with my brother. Elden Ring is such a great game, and there's so many reasons why. So, first of all,
he knocked me off.
Let me say the thing that Elden Ring's weakness is, and that's the storytelling and story. The story and characters in Elden Ring are basically like very, very cryptic. Let's just say it doesn't really have too much of a story, and the characters are pretty cryptic.
Harder now.
So I wouldn't say that the story and characters
are Ancient Dragon.
You know, I mean, although I know they're written by George R.R. Martin, but yeah, it's not really like it's going to be as deep because it's really cryptic. Typical FromSoft. But the strengths of Elden Ring is that it's a fully open world game, and it's probably, in my opinion, one of, like, you talk about open world games, right? Elden Ring is probably one of the greatest. Like, there's Red Dead Redemption 2, GTA 5, you know, Skyrim, and then you think of all the great open world games, Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, right? These are all great open world games. But Elden Ring really, it has something like everywhere.
Yeah, I mean,
like no matter what you go, where you go, there's always something out there for you, and it's that sense of exploration. Yeah, it's exploration, and there being like a reward for something. Like no matter where you go, there's some kind of reward for just trying to find things. So you get a reward for exploration, and the combat is very well. It's difficult because it's FromSoft, but it's very satisfying at the same time. So you're basically forced to learn all the bosses and move sets and everything, and that forces you to get better. You know, it forces you to get better at the game.
Secret areas.
So it just forces you to improve as a player.
Yeah, and learning, of course.
I think that's the thing that made me appreciate Elden Ring so much. Is
Crumbling Fairham was.
It made me really. It's a beautiful
open
world game. Graphics are pretty nice. It's got such beautiful art design.
Where it happens.
There's something that happens everywhere in this game, like no matter where you go, there's something to do and see. And the combat in this game is deeply satisfying when you can actually like beat the enemies.
Since it's such a unique like way to get there.
In my opinion, one of the greatest RPGs, one of the greatest
but it does say on
of all time, Elden Ring. So that's my pick for 2022.
Yeah, it does say on the wiki page that.
Okay, so 2023 is Baldur's Gate 3. Not a surprise, actually, to a lot of people, because this game was Game of the Year for many people, and it was in a very stacked year, too, which goes to show you how great Baldur's Gate 3 was. Great things about Baldur's Gate 3 is, so it's an open world, isometric RPG. It's turn-based, and it's done so well. It's just so polished and refined, and like mechanics and everything in this game is characterization, like everything's done just so well in this game. Yeah, dialogue, story, characters, the open world setting, the amount of customization you can do in this game, everything is just done so well. It really brought back kind of turn-based RPG gameplay to many people, and this being a traditional RPG game, because it's Dungeons and Dragons, right? It's an isometric Dungeons and Dragons game. Yeah, that's like, I find that incredible that it managed to have as wide appeal as it did, because you're talking about Baldur's Gate, which is a franchise which traditionally like more nerdy players would play, like, you know, getting people like these days into something turn-based when they have like no attention span is no small feat. So the Baldur's Gate 3, you know, it's got to be really good to be able to do what it did. So yeah, and then we were playing even like split screen. Me and my friend are playing here. That's amazing. The fact that you can do local split screen co-op in an open world setting like this is incredible. And given how much content is in this game, yeah. So this game's just incredible. I mean, the open world, the setting, the characters, the combat, turn-based combat, dialogue. It's just, and the features of this game, like the fact that we're able to play like split screen like this in two entirely different landscapes and areas of the map.
Went to the dungeon, opened up
you're in a totally different place. Yeah, so it's incredible. Anyways, I give Larian Studios their praise. I love Divinity Original Sin too, but I do think that Baldur's Gate 3, they really went up themselves here. So, great game. Okay, so 2024 this year is Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. This is the sequel to Like a Dragon, and as I said before in my favorite games per year video, I think this is the best Yakuza game. And I love Yakuza, like I played almost every Yakuza game except for 3. The problem with most Yakuza games is that up to and including 6, the combat has always been pretty repetitive because it's like brawler combat. It's like hack and slash brawler combat. And the character Kiryu Kazuma is not that interesting, honestly. He's just kind of like a blank slate stoic character. But Like a Dragon in 2020, when it came out, it changed all that. It made it turn-based, added party members, you made the combat more interesting, and you gave a different character basically for the series, Ichiban. Ichiban is a lot more interesting than Kiryu Kazuma is. He actually has a personality. So, yeah, it basically fixed a lot of issues with the core Yakuza games, and really keeping some of the other stuff that made Yakuza great, like the whole drama and betrayal, part of the storyline. The Yakuza stories have always been pretty dramatic. And then you have the mini games and everything, and being set in Japan, so you have all the Japanese culture stuff, which is really cool. So Yakuza Like a Dragon was my favorite Yakuza game until Infinite Wealth came out and expanded upon Like a Dragon by adding in the additional area of Hawaii. And then you are also able to do other stuff too, like manage different businesses of Hawaii too. So, and hotels, I think. So, yeah, this is just overall, it's a great game. It's one of my favorite RPGs. Certainly for 2024, there's a few contenders, right? Persona 3 Reload, there's Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth, there's Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, there's Unicorn Overlord. Yeah, there's a few good, a few other great RPGs I could have chosen. But Infinite Wealth still gets my vote. I think it's just my favorite Yakuza game. And it just expands upon Like a Dragon, which was already a great game to begin with. So, anyways, yeah. You have your party-based combat here, turn-based combat, which makes the combat more interesting. You do have Kiryu in this game as well. So, that's another plus. If you guys are missing Kiryu, it's like you don't have to play as Ichiban because Kiryu is... I mean, you don't have to stick with Ichiban because Kiryu is here as well. So it's like a nice little love letter to fans of Yakuza series as well, because you have Kiryu here as well in Hawaii with you. So... yeah, and being able to visit this new locale of Hawaii is really nice too. Not just stick to Japan, and you also have Japan in this game, like Yokohama. If you do miss the Japanese setting, you have that as well. So it really has kind of everything. That's it, guys. That's my favorite RPG per year. Let me know what you guys think. It's a pretty similar video to my favorite games per year, I guess, except instead of just choosing from any game, I'm just going with RPGs. So, yeah, anyways, let me know what you guys think of my choices. And yeah, as always, thanks for watching. Yeah, let me know if you guys want me to do more of these kinds of videos.